Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Unlocked, the podcast that gives you the keys to speaking English fluently and with total confidence. My name is Simon.
And I'm Natalie. It's so good to be back with you all. Simon, the response to our first episode on confidence has just been incredible. I was reading a comment from a listener in Brazil who said she finally felt permission to be imperfect. I just love that. It really gets to the heart of what we're trying to do here.
It really does. It's like this huge weight that learners carry around, this fear that they have to be perfect from day one. And once you let that go, you can finally start to breathe and actually enjoy the process. But that brings up the next big challenge, doesn't it? Once you're not afraid to speak, you suddenly realize, okay, what words do I actually use?
Exactly. It's that feeling of having 1,000 words in your head, but you can only find the simplest ones in the moment. It's why today we want you to completely forget how you were taught to learn vocabulary. Forget the endless lists. Forget the flashcards with a random word on one side and a definition on the other.
We've all been there. You spend hours memorizing a word like, I don't know, ephemeral. You know the definition is lasting for a very short time, but then you're talking to a friend about a beautiful sunset, and the word just doesn't come to you naturally. That's because you didn't learn it naturally.
That's why today we're introducing the natural vocabulary method. The main idea is incredibly simple. Native speakers don't learn words from lists. As children, we learned words by hearing them and seeing them in a situation. We learn them in context.
And context is everything. It's the first and most important pillar of this method. A word without context is just data. It's like knowing a single ingredient without knowing what recipe it belongs to. But learn your word in a sentence, in a story, that's where it comes to life.
I have a perfect example. The word serene. You could look it up and see the definition. Calm and peaceful. Okay, fine. But what if you read this in a travel blog? After a long hike, we reached the mountain lake. The water was perfectly still, the air was quiet, and the whole scene felt completely serene.
The difference is huge. Now you don't just know the definition, you can feel it. You associate serene with a quiet lake, with the feeling of peace after a long hike. You built this web of connections in your brain, not just stored a single piece of data.
That emotional connection makes it unforgettable. So the first practical step is to change where you get new words. Stop looking for lists of 100 advanced English words. Instead, find content you actually enjoy.
Read an article about a movie you love, a blog about your favorite hobby, or a book from a genre you find interesting.
And here's a key tip for that. As you read, don't interrupt your flow to stop for every single word you don't know. Just read for the general meaning and highlight the words that seem important or interesting. When you finish the page or the section, then you can go back, try to guess the meaning first, using the sentences around it as clues.
Your brain is a powerful detective. You'll be amazed at how often your guess is correct. When you discover the meaning for yourself, it sticks with you so much more than when it's just given to you.
Pell Layer 2, learn in chunks, the secret to sounding natural.
Okay, so we're finding words in context. The next pillar is about making your English sound less like a textbook and more like a real person. The secret is this: stop learning single words and start learning chunks.
Chunks are just groups of words that native speakers almost always use together. Another word for them is collocations. For example, we don't just say a decision, we almost always say make a decision. We don't say heavy traffic, we say we're stuck in traffic.
Or a phrase like at the end of the day.
It's like being a chef. A chef doesn't always grab individual ingredients like flour, then sugar, then eggs. Sometimes they use a pre-made cake mix to work faster. Chunks are like linguistic cake mixes. They help you build sentences more quickly and more naturally.
I love that analogy. And learning in chunks has two massive benefits. First, as you said, you instantly sound more natural. Simon, try to build a sentence with the word suggestion, using the verb do.
Okay, I would like to do a suggestion. It feels a bit strange.
Exactly. It's grammatically understandable, but no native speaker would say it. But if you learned the chunk make a suggestion, you would naturally say, I'd like to make a suggestion.
It sounds perfect. This second benefit is fluency.
Your brain doesn't have to think as hard. It doesn't have to search for the right verb to go with the noun mistake. It just grabs the whole chunk, make a mistake, and your sentence flows without those long, awkward pauses.
So, how do you find these chunks? You become a chunk hunter. When you're reading and listening, pay attention to the words that surround your new vocabulary word. If you learn the word opportunity, also look for words it often pairs with, like a golden opportunity or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Learning the whole phrase is much more powerful.
Pillar 3, the active vocabulary notebook.
All right, so this brings us to our third and most crucial pillar. We're finding words in context, we're learning them in chunks, but how do we make them stick? The answer is the active vocabulary notebook.
Now, we know we said to forget lists, but this is an active tool, not a passive one. This isn't a boring 2-column list. For every new word or chunk, you follow 3 simple but powerful steps.
Step 1. Write down the original sentence where you found the word. This preserves that all-important context. Don't just write the word by itself.
Step 2, write a simple definition in your own words. It doesn't have to be a perfect dictionary definition, just what it means to you.
And here is the most important part. Step 3, create your own original sentence using the new vocabulary. And this is key. Make the sentence personal. Make it true about your own life, your feelings, or your experiences.
This is where the real learning happens. When you create a personal sentence, you are forcing your brain to actually use the new language. Let's say you found that chunk on the fence. Your personal sentence might be, I'm on the fence about whether I should travel this summer. Because it's about your life. You'll remember it. And a bonus tip for this, schedule 10 minutes every weekend to read your notebook entries out loud. This moves the vocabulary from something you just understand in your head to something you can actually say with your voice. It connects your brain to your mouth. Conclusion and challenge for the week. So that's the natural vocabulary method. It's a complete shift from the old way of learning. Let's do a quick recap of the 3 main pillars.
So first, learn from context. Stop studying isolated words. Find your vocabulary in things you enjoy reading and listening to. Let the situation teach you the meaning.
Second, learn in chunks. Pay attention to the groups of words that native speakers use together. Learning these collocations will make you sound more natural and feel more fluent.
And third, keep an active vocabulary notebook. Don't just list words. Write the original sentence, define the word, and then, most importantly, create your own personal sentence to make the vocabulary yours.
We have a small challenge for you this week. Start your own active vocabulary notebook. Don't try to fill it up. Just aim to add 1 new word or chunk to it every day. That's it, 1 a day.
At the end of the week, you'll have 7 new pieces of language that are deeply connected to your brain and your life. That's a huge win, and it's how real, lasting progress is made. You'll start to notice your new words everywhere.
And that's all the time we have for today on English Unlocked. We truly hope this gives you a new, more effective, and more enjoyable way to think about building your vocabulary.
Join us for our next episode where we'll be talking all about listening skills and how to finally understand fast native speakers without getting lost or feeling overwhelmed. You won't want to miss it. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Until then, happy speaking! Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Unlocked, the podcast that gives you the keys to speaking English fluently and with total confidence. My name is Simon.
And I'm Natalie. Simon, it's so good to be back with you all. The response to our first episode on confidence has been incredible. It seems the idea of building confidence first really resonated with a lot of people. It seems like it's really helped a lot of people feel like they're taking a little bit of pressure off their shoulders.
It really did. We got so many messages from listeners saying that they felt a sense of relief, like they were finally given permission to not be perfect. And that's the perfect place to start today's episode, because once you have the confidence to speak, the next logical question is, what words do I use?
Exactly. How do you build a vocabulary that you can actually use in a real conversation? Today, we want you to forget everything you've been taught about learning new words. Forget the long, boring list. Forget the flashcards with a random word on one side and a definition on the other.
We've all been there. You spend hours memorizing a word like, I don't know, ubiquitous. The definition is present everywhere, but then you're in a real conversation and you can't figure out how to use it naturally. It's like having a library full of books that you're not allowed to open.
It's so frustrating. That's why today we're introducing the natural vocabulary method. The main idea of how kids should have supers get their vocabulary is simple. They don't learn from lists in children, age children. We learned words by hearing them and seeing them in a situation. We learn them in context.
And context is everything. It's the first and most important pillar of this method. A word without context is just as data. It's like knowing a single ingredient without knowing what recipe it belongs to. But learning a word in a sentence, in a story, that's where it comes to life.
I have a perfect example